Welcome, Spiritual Mag. My name is Sam Bell. Today we are going to focus on compassionate neuroliberation, spiritual and structural resurrection of a fractured nation by Sam Bell. Since 1996, a liminal threshold opened for me, unseen by many, undeniable to a few, when I experienced the other side. This unique experience granted me not only a significant commission, but also a broader perspective. One that sees the structural failure of the United States as not merely economic, not merely political or infrastructural, but in some ways a spiritual unraveling. The time has come to confront the unrelenting truth. The United States of America, as it has been known, is no more. What remains is the urgent and sacred opportunity to form something more authentic, empathic, and lawful. We need a new vision for the States United of America, one that is anchored in constitutional integrity, anchored in the Bill of Rights, and anchored in states' rights. This new vision stands poised not just as a successor state, but as a spiritual resurrection of service, empathy, and autonomy. Its counterpart, however, descends into a biometric dystopia where AI, neuromarketing, and predator class economics control addicted herds who no longer believe in soul or sovereignty. The need for this new vision is not a distant future, it is a pressing present. To explore this in full, we must examine three vital domains: historic precedent, neurological, and spiritual implications, and the constitutional renewal. These allow us to perceive both the collapse and the rising from a deeper, clearer, and perhaps even redeeming vantage point. When empires fracture and cultures crumble and divide, all historical empires eventually confront a reckoning, what we might term in the context of a spiritual hospice setting, a palliative stage of governance. Rome's infrastructure rotted from within, even as the territories bloated. The Soviet Union, driven by ideology, broke under the weight of the punishing conditions that followed World War II. These are just a few examples how empires have historically faced similar challenges. The American Republic, founded not as a democracy, but as a constitutional republic, has entered its own terminal diagnosis. But there's a crucial distinction. Unlike those earlier collapses, the United States fracture is not occurring solely along economic or racial lines. It's fracturing of consciousness. The neural architecture of an entire populace has been reshaped. Neuroplasticity, yes. The brain's ability to reorganize itself has been completely hijacked by the dopaminergic exploitation, a process in which the brain's reward system is manipulated for control through gamified screens and fear-conditioned media. We are not just distracted, we are neurologically reframed to expect chaos, crave spectacle, and defer autonomy. In my 40 years working with neurogenetic populations in hospitals and hospices, I observed the human's brain's incredible capacity to adapt, even under stroke or trauma or degenerative disease. But I also learned this: the brain will protect belief systems until the organism perishes, unless it is invited gently but powerfully to awaken. Thus enters the spiritual imperative of this moment to call back the collective soul to service, to empathy, to lawful liberty. This is not a time for despair, but a time for hope and action. We have the power to shape a better future for our nation, a future that is more empathic, just more and more in line with our spiritual values. The potential for positive change is within our grasp. Neurological, spiritual implications, addiction, control, and consciousness. As a speech and language pathologist, I know that the voice is more than a laryngeal vibration. It is the very embodiment of agency. To lose voice to dysarthria or aphasia is often to experience language amputation. The American voice, once strident with dissent, debate, and dialogue, has become language impaired or aphasia-like under the weight of powerful, controlled narratives 24/7, 365. When every major media conglomerate is owned by 5 or fewer hands and managed by neuromarketing, there is no longer free speech. Hello? There's a curated echo. You must first have the understanding when the global corporations use neuromarketing, a neuro-disclosure agreement is mandated. So they're not allowed to let anyone know. So you do not know when your subconscious decisions are not yours. Repeat, you do not know when your subconscious decisions are not yours. Presently, biofeedback and neuroscience, combined with ginormous data banks, with brain maps and your digital history, all while being infused into your environment, artificial intelligence over the top, managing you subconsciously. If you don't understand where what you know, believe came from, now is a good time to start. Enter the new media mogul game. In the new order, The truth cannot be manufactured. Hello? The truth cannot be manufactured. It must be re-ensouled. Soul, S-O-U-L-E-D, re-ensouled. That is, it must arise not from a programming script, but from the authentic, verified, transparent testimony journalism of the soul. Think of Julian Assange, Edward Snowden, or Glenn Greenwald. They are not relics, but prototypes for the next generation of communicators. To shift media, we must rewire attention. Hello? This cannot be achieved solely through legislation. It requires what I call compassionate neoliberation, a grassroots reformation in which the populace reclaims its attention span as sacred territory. Yes, you reclaim your attention span as sacred territory. Teaching metacognition to teens, teaching elders to re-engage with narrative memory, and everyone building media hygiene protocols into daily life. These are the neuro-spiritual tools needed to reverse the induced aphasic-like symptoms in a people. Over on the darker side, the other half of this bifurcated future, the digitalized predator state, thriving on greed for control, perfects the ultra tools of control. Satellite-connected biodevices, AI-driven fear loops, a technical priesthood that interprets your bile signals and determines your fitness for the workday. Imagine the intimacy of you being transformed into a surveillance model. The very body itself becoming the monitored perimeter. Hell yeah! Constitutional renewal, service to others, and the state's reawakening. In 1776, the Declaration of Independence established not just a political break from monarchy, but a spiritual contract of mutual liberty. Yes, a spiritual contract of mutual liberty. This contract, later codified in the Constitution and its first 10 amendments, the Bill of Rights, offered a vision of balance between the federal functions and state-level autonomy. The current malaise is not merely one of lost leadership, but of forgotten documents. The Constitution has not failed. We have been unable to adhere to it. In this slide, Jesse Ventura becomes more than a man. He becomes a symbolic return to principled federalism. His platform, anti-corporate, pro-transparency, physically courageous, and spiritually skeptical, mirrors the very ethos of Jefferson and Adams argued over. This new nation, States United of America, is therefore not a geographical redesign. It is a cognitive spiritual reclamation. States asserting their rights is not succession. It's a form of homeostasis. Much as the brainstem regulates vital functions without requiring political input, states must be allowed to manage local reality without intrusive centralized mandates. Yet, here is where empathy and service come in. States' rights must not become a veil for bigotry or economic disenfranchisement. Instead, each state must be empowered to nurture the human condition, be empowered to improve care for the elderly, educate the young, protect minorities, and defend speech. Autonomy must walk hand in hand with conscience. This is the kind of governance we need, one that is rooted in empathy and service. It's up to us to demand and uphold these virtues in our leaders. About sorting souls, the enlistment or enslavement of the piranha ponds buffet is 98%. In the crumbling states not aligned with the new constitutional rebirth, think of kind of like Ukraine today, the bleak future is all too clear. Millions of people are rendered disposable. Millions more reduced, algorithmically sorted laborers, emotionally dysregulated, seeking approval from screen-based icons. I feel that some will become new, pre-sorted criminals, those whose neuropsychological profiles mark them as oppositional or dangerous. These individuals will be offered two fates: military enlistment or prison. The ethical abyss here is staggering. To weaponize trauma instead of healing, it is a path that guarantees planetary ruin. Military might draw from the broken. It's a sword whose hilt cuts the wider. This is why a new leader must emerge who values the soul over the state and understands the rehabilitative potential of community service, spiritual renewal, and apprenticeship. A true constitutional president must see every criminal as a wounded citizen, waiting to be remembered, and every soldier as a moral actor needing moral grounding, not a machine plugged in geopolitics. So, a vision for a planetary rebirth. Having walked with more than a few to the final breath, I can tell you with sacred assurance that death is not an end. It is a shift of being. The United States has died in spirit, but not in potential. We now stand at the edge of a collective healing moment, not merely grieving the past, but preparing the psyche for rebirth. All it will take is a new president and a 100% different media mogul. That sounds like a prophecy, and it may be. But prophecy is not a guarantee. It is a crossroads. If we choose the path of service to others, constitutional fidelity, and empathic governance, we may yet rise. If we decide on biometric domination, gamified attention economies, and automated fear, we will fail completely, irrevocably. Yet here you are, still choosing, still breathing, still capable of love, attention, clarity, and action. The United States is gone, but something more human, more divine, more united can still be born. You and all your loved ones are always in my prayers. Samuel Joseph Bell, civilian journalist, spiritualmag.org.